Welcome everybody to our CIRCit webinar series. My name is Daniela Pegoso and I'm an associate professor at the Technical University of Denmark, and I've been one of the co-leads of the CIRCit project over the last 3.5 years. Today I'm going to be facilitating this session, which will take about half an hour, and we'll discuss one of the workbooks that resulted from the CIRCit project about circular economy business modeling. A little bit about CIRCit before we dive down into the circular business modeling. It is a Nordic project that started 3.5 years ago with the main goal to accelerate the transition to a circular economy in the Nordic industry. Over the last years, we have involved more than 70 different organizations and companies to help us to co-create a number of different tools to make the transition to a circular economy, and also 6 workbooks, which are freely available for download online in our website. Today is the 3rd out of 7 webinars that we're going to have in total, which is part of the launch season for those workbooks. Our main goal today is to provide you with an overview of how to design circular economy business models in a way where companies can successfully decouple value creation from resource consumption. And for that, nobody better than Marina Pieroni. She's the main researcher behind the circular economy business modeling. She's also a PhD researcher with us at DTU, and she's been directly involved in the CIRCit project. Many thanks for being here today, Marina. We are all very much looking forward to learning more about circular business modeling, about the key results, and also the tools available to help us in making this transition. Welcome again.
Very much for the introduction, Daniela, and for you all, welcome and thank you for joining our third CIRCit webinar. Our focus today, as introduced by Daniela, will be on exploring a bit further the circular economy business modeling workbook, which you can see in the screen there. That's the workbook. And I will structure the webinar in 2 parts. First, I will guide you through the workbook to explore a bit of what is circular economy business model, why it is important, how to carry circular economy business modeling processes within companies, and what the companies can get by the end of the process. And then finally, I will transition to the CIRCit webpage, where I'll show you where this workbook and the tools that support the workbook are hosted in our webpage, so you can apply them yourselves. So let's start by the first question. What is then circular economy business modeling? And to answer to that question, I will skip to the page 7 of the workbook, where we have here the common framework developed by all the colleagues of Project CIRCit, called Circular Strategy Scanner, to explain what are the possible circular economy strategies that one company could think about implementing throughout several business processes. The circular economy business modeling process lies here on the top in the orange zone. And circular economy business modeling is about rethinking and reconfiguring business models of a company, or the business model of an SME company, and the value generation architecture of this company in order to transition from business as usual or linear business models and enhance the circularity of those business models. So circular economy business models, explaining it in practical terms, if we zoom in this framework here, we can provide an example of a company, of how a company would then apply circular economy business modeling thinking and the process to change the business model that it has currently. So imagine a furniture manufacturer that provides modular furniture systems and sell modular furniture systems to B2B companies like shops, or so they can structure their stands, or like a big corporation so they can structure their offices. So in a linear business model, you would think that they sell those modular systems. They are products that can be used several times by the customers themselves. At most, these companies would think about providing spare parts. But then when you think about us changing the business model to enhance its circularity, such a company, a furniture manufacturer, could think about, if you look at the screen, to transition the business model from selling products to offering dynamic workspace solutions for the customers, or shop spaces, temporary shop spaces for their customers. When they do that, they will need to provide not only the modular systems, but other services to guarantee that the workspaces are there, functional and dynamic, which could imply in having upgrade services from time to time to redesign the workspaces and change them according to the functions of the company, or certainly repair and maintenance services to guarantee the availability of the furniture systems in place. And if we think about the pop-up shops coming now and then to the city, this furniture manufacturer could retain the modular furniture after 2 months that the pop-up shop goes away and another one comes, and pass it along in another contract to reuse and sometimes refurbish, or refurbishment will be needed. So there are many opportunities that appear when a business model or the logic of commercializing and relating to the customer and to the suppliers is rethought. And changing this business model logic can untap or activate several of the circular economy strategies over here. And that's why we come to the second topic. That's why circular economy business modeling is important, because it can incentivize manufacturers, companies, also service companies to disrupt the linear way of consuming and the linear way of operating from the beginning, since when the customer is touched. However, the extent to which the company can enhance the circularity potential will change, and the choice of how much it can seize the resource decoupling gains that this new business model will promote will depend very much on the company's choices, strategic intentions, for instance, or the company readiness to change its capabilities, or the readiness of the ecosystems like infrastructure, legislations, or the readiness of the customers that will be willing or not to change from buying products to consuming services and experiences, and so forth. Choosing which type of a business model to go with and depends on understanding what is the type of resource decoupling that you can seize in your company, what is the problem or challenge for circular economy, and how you can solve that. But choosing how to solve that is not a trivial process, and that's what the circular economy business modeling workbook tries to support the companies with. It tries to support the companies with a systematized process, with a step-by-step approach, and some tools that can provide advice, knowledge base, examples, inspirations for the companies to analyze and base themselves in evidence. So then they can start experimenting and piloting with these business models that can enhance circularity. So now that we talked about the objective, we are touching the how, we are touching the process. So we come to the third topic, how to conduct circular economy business modeling into a company. And to answer to that question, I will move further, jump to the page 15 of the workbook. And here you can see that the circular economy business modeling process recommended by the workbook is a 3-stage approach that contains 10 activities distributed across the stages. And these stages are sense, seize, and transform the business model towards enhanced circularity. Since this is a process-based knowledge area or focus area, and it will touch many areas within the company and as well external stakeholders, for instance, customers and suppliers and so forth. A facilitator is mandatory. So somebody has to orchestrate the execution of these activities inside the company. And once that facilitator is in place, the team of participants for different functional areas are in place, then the process can start. And it goes in 3 stages, as I said. In the sense stage, the idea is to really ideate, get inspired, try to break the status quo about what could be done in terms of circular economy to change the business model. After ideas are in place, ideas that make sense and that could provide some kind of economic gains for the company and resource decoupling, then the company can then move to the seize stage, where detailed descriptions of how the business model will work, the detailed value proposition, up until the point of pricing, cost discussions for estimating initial potential of economic and resource decoupling gains will be discussed. And then the final stage is the stage transform, when the company will, after having selected and improved a lot of the business model concepts, start experimenting, piloting, and scaling up. And this is an iterative process. It is a process of learning by doing. So it is important to go out to try to implement, and certainly new business models will appear, or a different business model will appear in the end when the company reaches the transform stage. So after, those are the three stages. We're not going to have time to go through all the stages here today. So what I will suggest I will do here in the webinar with you is to go through one of the stages to show you what you can find in each of the stages in terms of the structure of the workbook. So let's take the stage sense. If we come to the stage sense, you will see that for each one of those you receive descriptions with who to involve, how to involve, just a time frame for implementing the activities, how the facilitator can prepare itself, herself or himself, and then a scheme here showing what are the activities in this stage, which tools the project CIRCit is providing to support. And we have this third lane here, which is about one special tool called Circular Economy Business Model Configurator, or expert system in the website. With this tool tries to fulfill needs from the facilitator to help the facilitator with structuring information and providing knowledge based on cases of circular economy in specific sectors, and also provide the means for performing the calculations of resource decoupling and the indicators and the economic indicators, the business case after all. And we recommend that you use all the three lanes, and the companies use all the three lanes. So let's take an example of how it should go with activity 3. I will jump to activity 3. So activity 3 aims to support the companies to ideate about possible business models for circular economy. And here you see the description of the step-by-step of how you conduct this activity. And here you can visualize the two tools. One of the tools is called Circular Economy Business Model Configurator Template. It's a framework that supports structuring and organizing the ideation process. And the second tool is the Circular Economy Business Model Pattern Cards. Those pattern cards, I will show you in a moment, that they can provide inspirations about real cases of companies in diverse sectors, manufacturing sectors, that have changed part of their business models for circular economy, either to influence the relationship with customers, the value they deliver to customers, or their internal operations and relationships to suppliers, or either new suppliers. The cards, the set of cards, there are more than 50 cards. Here they are summarized. We have as well the physical set of cards. Actually, they're like that. So if you come to the CIRCit workshop in September, you can play with the physical cards. There's a nice box accompanying it. And if we take that case, to give an example of the modular furniture system provider that wanted to provide dynamic workspaces as service, they were here in this pattern of offerings services, products as services. But that example that I gave is a real company that participated in CIRCit, and that company decided not only to deal with how they or to gain circularity by retaining products back from the customers and extending the life, but as well by using circular supplies. So they decided to use in their products recycled materials such as ocean plastics. to create that value chain that doesn't exist today, they had to work with workbook 6 of CIRCit, and they had to activate partners, suppliers to source the ocean plastics and produce ocean plastic pellets. And in the end, a new company was created, a new business model was created, a business model which is supplier for their core business model as workspaces as service. And they are now figuring out how to deal with sourcing from their spin-out company through maybe buying the ocean plastics pallets as service, so the material company can then continue recirculating. This is an experiment. It is still in an experimental stage, but it's to give an idea of how things could work. And I will just only show you that I promised the tool. So the circular economy business model pattern cards are here. And you can screen through them. I will show you where you can download them. Afterwards, in the front, you have what you have to do to change. In the back, you have a case, the case of a real manufacturing company that have used such a pattern before to provide inspiration. And as I promised as well, this is the circular economy business model configurator. Now we're calling expert system, and how this could help the facilitator. For instance, imagine that we have more than 40 cards, more than 40 ways to start changing a business model of a company. So this configurator, based on some initial information from the company, could help the facilitator to start with the most promising 6 cards or 6 ways of changing the business models. So the facilitator has to fill in this framework. And I will not use the tool actually because it takes time for the codes to run. So I've already pre-run the tool with the settings here. But basically, when you reply, the configurator will recommend the 6 top cards that you should take a look at that seem promising for your context. And after you select those cards, you can then use the physical cards here to play with. And after you select the cards here, the configurator recommends how to build an idea. So you can start by ideating in the value proposition, in the actors, how you would involve, and so forth. And moreover, after selecting here the cards that you would like to compose with your business model, the configurator can then suggest how each single element of the canvas, the business model canvas, for instance, should have to be reconfigured. So for instance, what could be revenue mechanism for such a circular business model? And what about the value creation and partners and so forth? And finally, then you can move forward into the second stage to start creating the business cases for the solutions and as well estimating indicators for resource decoupling. In the end, you would get a possibility of comparing different alternatives in terms of cash flow, in terms of resource decoupling indicators. And finally, I just want to finish to show you that by the end, what companies get with this process is the plan for experimenting, piloting their idea of business models, and hopefully implement it and roll out it. And where you can find this in the CIRCit webpage. So if we come to the CIRCit webpage, you come to project, circularity focus areas. Then you find here, when you click there, the circular economy business modeling. If you click here, you will be redirected to the page where you can download the workbook and download the tools here, the pattern cards, here the expert system, and other tools that are available. Well, with this, I hope that I provided enough overview of what's the workbook, and I will be glad to answer some questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marina. I had a small challenge with the technology here, but seems to be working now. So we do have some questions for you. And let me start with the first one about the process. So the first question here is, how long does it take to go through the entire process until we have the final circular economy business model implemented?
Yeah. So if we come to the workbook here again, that will vary a lot. That is a very good question. And it will vary from company to company, but usually with the companies, more than 17 companies that we had in the project CIRCit, usually these two first stages, sense and seize, they could last from weeks to months. And then the transform stage, which is when the business models are implemented, that could last years. And it is a long process.
Yeah, and then I guess the next question is connected to that as well. You mentioned about some workshops and that they would support the process of creating circular business models. Could those workshops be carried out in a digital way, in an online way, considering the current situation that we are just now?
That's a fantastic question for the time we are now. Yes, they can be conducted. Some of them were conducted in the CIRCit project, actually. So tools to use it online, probably the physical framework tools like the cards that I showed there, or the templates, circular economy business model configurator. Maybe you could use some tools like Miro or other tools that you can create the frameworks digitally in a shared room, meeting room, and then you can use virtually post-its and ideate together. Another option is to use the configurator. The Excel tool is a bit less flexible for using it simultaneously, but maybe a first trial could be given by the facilitator, and then the document could go through and circulate to be validated with the other colleagues. But definitely it can be done.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And then we have another question here in connection to who are the people from the company that we need them to invite to those workshops? Who are the key functions that need to be in the room?
Yeah. So here in the beginning we have a detailed list of who needs to be in the room, of who to involve. But usually it is very important that you have, I don't know if you are able to see here, but you have a very diverse group of people from business strategy and development, research and development, product development, sales. If there is a team for services operations, that's very important, or after sales, digital technologies and the IT team, people with expertise in procurement as well, and sometimes manufacturing is also important. And towards the end of the project, more when you are in the ideation stage for seizing stage, then having finance and legal experts is very important. And of course, corporate social responsibility or environmental professionals. Usually the facilitators are product managers or corporate social responsibility professionals or business strategies when the company have that, or even in SMEs, the COOs or CEOs of the SMEs would play that role as facilitator.
Mm-hmm. And if we try to look externally in the company and try to consider supply chain engagement, we have a question here in relation to how difficult it is for the business to act in the full supply chain. For example, if they want to start taking back the products and remanufacture them, is that something that they should do by themselves, or should they look for partners along the value chain?
An excellent question about the engagement of external stakeholders and so forth, and it varies a lot as well. We have in CIRCit project a specific work package, which is work package 6. Daniela will tell you when the webinar will come, but I think it's towards the end of the week. And that work package is about creating the new collaborations and reconfiguring value chains. In this work package, in the circular economy business modeling, it is important to understand the need. There is a need for a new type of supplier. There is a need for a new type of entity to close the value chain and so forth. So this work package will identify the need. And then the company will be activated to start acting and activating the network to, or the ecosystem to maybe create or modify the value chain. But we had experience with one company that did engaged one key supplier in the co-creation process for the circular economy business models, because they didn't need to create new entities. They already had the key player that would take part on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And talking about companies, Marina, could you maybe tell a little bit more about how was the process to engage companies to participate in the co-creation of the tools?
Yes. So the process to engage the companies and the process to co-create the tools of CIRCit, they took 1.5 to 2 years, the co-creation itself. But the engagement has been occurring since the day the project started 3 years ago. So it's a long process, and basically it occurred by providing the companies with an initial understanding of what the CIRCit project could offer if we take that view of how the circular economy strategies can be implemented. That is how we engage the company in the beginning. We try to help them to understand how ready they were and where they wanted to change. So the companies that were engaged in circular economy business modeling, they already had a clue that they needed to change something at a business model level. But once they were explained and engaged throughout several workshops to demonstrate and activate companies, that lasted at least 6 months to start with the first companies, and then it was very extended throughout 1.5 years all the way. So that's basically how the companies were engaged.
Mm-hmm. And we have another question in connection to that as well, and this is more about whether you have tried to have a quick sprint approach with the companies, especially for the first 2 stages, the sense and the size, and how did that work?
Yes, that's an excellent question. Actually, that's how the majority of the companies ran through the 2 stages, sense and seize. It was within a period, actually it was within a period of, we could do it in 1.5 weeks once, but we try to do it in separated in 1 week with a break for 1 week for calculation of the estimations, economic and resource decoupling estimations, because some companies need to gather data. And then after the break of the 2nd week, we finished with the calculations. But actually, that's very advisable that you do the sprints very quickly and close to each other. And then the iterations are the ones that will occur throughout a month or 2 months and so forth. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, and we have time for one more question. So the final one is about the ideation process. Usually you come up with lots of different ideas for business proposals when you go through that step, but how to make sure that they are good from a circular economy point of view? How can we select those ideas that have the highest potential from a circularity point of view, and how to avoid that we just choose the ones that we would choose anyways?
Yeah, that's a very nice question. In the ideation stage, what we can do is first search for inspirations. I would recommend, for instance, of if you search through the circular economy business model pattern cards, in there you can have indications of how much potential those ideas were able to generate from the companies. So you can get that in the circular economy business model cards, especially in the circular economy business model configurator. But it's a sense based on benchmarking. Benchmarking is not solely the ones in the cards. I would recommend benchmarking with the companies that are in similar sectors. Doesn't need to be the competitors, but benchmarking with companies that have done similar things to understand how they are seizing in the potential in the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you very much for a very nice webinar and discussion, Marina. I know that there are some questions that we did not have time to answer. There are a couple about SMEs and whether the tool can be applicable for SMEs, and the answer is yes. In fact, most of the companies that were engaged in the project are SMEs, and they managed to develop a circular business model on the basis of these proposals. And then we also have a question about whether there's a tool that helps to calculate or estimate the costs of the new modules. Yes, there is, and it is also in the expert system that Marina showed to us. I'd like to invite you all to go to our webpage where you can download the tools and the workbook. There is a lot of different resources in there. If you have any questions, you are of course also welcome to contact us, and then we'll be happy to talk to you about that. And well, before saying goodbye for today, I just wanted to announce the next webinar that is coming tomorrow, when Sasha from RISE in Sweden will be presenting the results of the work on circular product design and development. And the idea here is to understand how we can develop more circular products and how can we actually evaluate how circular a product is in the very early design stages. So I hope to see you all tomorrow. In the chat, you can also see the link for the workshop that Marina just mentioned. In September, here in Copenhagen, we are planning to hold a hands-on workshop where you can try out the tools and the approaches in a very hands-on activity for all the different workbooks. And if you want to pre-register, then just go to our website and you will be sent more information in due time. Okay, so that was all for today. Thank you very much for coming and for your nice questions. We see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.